Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And today I'm going to do a very deep analysis of the murder of Melissa Wolfenbarger and the fact that they just came back with a verdict of not guilty against her husband, Chris Wolfenbarger. It took them less than 3 hours for the jury to come back with a not guilty verdict. And so I find this case is quite a travesty. And so I'm going to start by giving you a very quick overview of what happened with Melissa. And then I'll give you my verdict, and then I'll go into depth on the whole case. Okay. Essentially what happened was, we're talking about, let's see, what year are we in? We are in 1998. This is Melissa. This is her husband, Chris. They were married then. They were very young. Okay, so they had a couple kids, I think 3 and 1. And the family says, and this is her, as is often stated by Sheryl McCollum, who I'll get into, and her interviews with the mother. She calls her Melissa's mama. And so what happened is, on Thanksgiving, they had heard from Melissa. And then that was it. Thanksgiving Day, 1998. And she had a very specific request for a Christmas gift. She asked her mother, Norma Patton, for a photo of herself with her grandfather. It's what she wanted for Christmas that year, Norma told Dateline. It was something very sentimental. But when Christmas arrived, there was no word from Melissa. She didn't show up to celebrate, pick up the present, didn't contact anybody, and they didn't know what happened to her. Well, she vanished. That's what happened to her. And she was never seen again, well, at least until she was found about 5 months later in pieces. And her husband, Chris, claimed that she just walked away. She just got, he saw her leaving, and he was like, I think she just went to California to find herself. And, he never reported her missing to the police. The family never knew what happened to her. Months went by. And so then about 5 months after she disappeared, her head, I'll say this, a head was found in a trash bag. And the head in the trash bag was found. Let me show you where it was found, because I find this very interesting. It was found. Let me give you the map here. Right here. Okay. So you see what the little red dot is? That is where Melissa and Chris lived. And if you see down there a place called Action Glass, only 3 minutes away by car, very close. That's where Chris worked. And guess what? On that road right there on Avon Road, that's where her head was found in the brush. And then a few months later, 4 more bags appeared. Trash bags, one with one leg, one with another leg, one with an arm, another arm. But her torso was never found. But all these body parts are found near his work. And her family's like, what the heck? But her head wasn't actually identified. DNA wasn't identified until 4 years later. 4 years later, it was proven it was Melissa. And then it was like, well, could he have done it? Well, nothing ever came of it. So Mama, as Sheryl McCollum says, was very frustrated. So she went to CrimeCon, and she came with a shirt on, and she was like with her daughter, and who was Tina, which Tina. It looks like Tina, but she calls her Tina. And they were there, and they talked to Sheryl McCollum. So Sheryl McCollum, I think it was 2017. So Sheryl McCollum has a online podcast called Zone 7. She brings a lot of experts on there. It's very well liked. It's at iHeart. You can also find it at pretty much Apple Podcasts and all that. And so she did a show on that case. As a matter of fact, there's a whole bunch of them. If you want to go through the entire Zone 7, you can do that. And so this is how Mama got some attention, And so on this case, and this is Sheryl McCollum, who was a criminologist. And I used to do shows on Nancy Grace with her. And so they wanted to find out. So this whole show started something going, and it also ended up going to Nancy Grace and Dateline and all that. And apparently, even this is down in Georgia, so Fannie Willis got involved, and then eventually, finally, they got a detective interested, and because supposedly somebody called in with some kind of tip that they'd seen something about behaviors, and the case finally they arrested her husband, Chris Wolfenbarger, Christopher Wolfenberger. Arrested him, charged him, and it just went to trial. And so during the trial, it lasted 2 weeks, and there were these are a couple of the prosecutors giving their part. This is one of the defense attorneys, and so that went on, and then it lasted 2 weeks. And after the 2 weeks ended, they went for the verdict. And the verdict, let me just, let me point out a couple other things. Just so you know about Chris, he said his wife just walked away. Then he moved after Christmas. He just disappeared out of the house they lived in and lived someplace else. The two kids went and stayed with his mom, and he never reported her missing. And there was supposedly domestic abuse in their lives. It was domestic abuse. There were a lot of things going on there. So this is all presented in court, and the jury, after 2 weeks, took less than 3 hours to come back with a not guilty verdict. And I want to say this as a professional profiler and one who does not believe in the lay jury system, because I believe they do not have the background, the training to understand all the evidence and all that. If I were on that jury, well, let's say if I were on a professional jury, who I think should have handled this case, if I were on a professional jury, I think myself and the rest of the professional jury members would have taken only 30 minutes to find Chris Wolfenbarger not guilty. Yeah, you heard me. Are you in shock now? Did you expect me to say I would find him guilty? I bet you did, because that's what you thought I was going to say. I would have found him not guilty. I believe any professional jury would have found him not guilty. As a matter of fact, if a professional jury system were in play, I believe this case would never have gone to court. Never. I don't think the prosecution would have dared present this case in front of a professional jury. I think they dared do this because they had this media thing rolling with Zone 7 and Nancy Grace, Dateline, all this stuff in the media, and they thought, we'll run with this. We think if we go to court, well, it's a lay jury. They'll go with the emotions. They'll find Chris guilty. That's what I think they were aiming for. Now I'm going to check the comments just because I know you're probably stunned. Are the jury blind? No, the jury got it right. You're saying they were? No, the jury got it right. I see right now here, I see all of you thinking, I don't feel bad for the mama at all. Lady Jane, I'm going to get into this whole thing with my analysis on this entire insane case. I don't know why Chris is in a wheelchair. I do not. You watch the Swamp Program. I'm going to talk about the Swamp Program in a little bit, because that's a whole nother aspect of this case. And people are not understanding the entire case. And the travesty, I feel, comes down to the fact that the evidence was not, the prosecution, I would say the detectives did not follow the evidence. The grand jury did not follow the evidence. The prosecution did not follow the evidence. They presented one of the worst cases I have ever seen in a court of law. These two, oh my God, let me tell you their names. If they believed in this case, they should be embarrassed. This is Simone Hilton, dreadful. This is Vincent Fawcett, dreadful. The defense attorney is Joel McDermott. There was a defense team, but he gave the closing arguments. Holy crap. I want to shake that man's hand. That was one of the best closing arguments I've ever heard. And I am totally on the defense side in this case, and that's a rarity for me. All right. Would it have been an unsafe conviction? Oh, hell yes, Aisha. That's correct. If he'd been found guilty, the Innocence Project, who I hate, would be all over this case. At least I think they should be. That's incredible. So Marion says, who are you and what have you done with Pat? there's a poltergeist inside me going with the defense. Yes, I'm telling you, you're going to think it is unusual because Pat Brown rarely sides with the defense on a lot of these cases, and this time 100% with the defense. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so shocking though that is, I'm going to explain to you why that is. All right, now, so let's get to this case, the in-depth analysis. You're going to find it absolutely fascinating because it is one of the craziest cases I've ever seen, and quite frankly, I've never wanted to write a true crime book until about now. I actually do want to write a true crime book, and a lot of this has to do with Melissa's daddy, who is, they call a serial killer. He's not a serial killer, but he did kill 5 people at different times. So he's a killer. So Melissa grew up with this killer. And this mother showed up in court and admitted that she knew he was killing these people and she helped get rid of the bodies. Lovely woman. So we have a very twisted case that starts with Carl Patton, Melissa's father. And this is the man that Melissa was raised by, and this woman, this guy, 100% a psychopath. This woman, because she's still alive, I don't want to get sued. I will say, certainly seems like one, but I'm not a psychologist, so I cannot diagnose. But she certainly acts and appears to be a psychopath, but I don't say that she is. But this is the situation Melissa grew up in. This is Tina. This is the sister. She's 7 years older. She's like cuddled up to mommy. And I'm going to say, I don't know what mom has over her, but she's got some interesting history too, which I'm going to bring up, which is very, very concerning. So I think Tina has her own psychological problems because they grew up in a family, Tina and Melissa, with killers. Say this is a seriously bizarre case. All right. So, and I will say this before I continue on. I'm going to point out some stuff that Sheryl McCollum brought up on Zone 7, and I am shocked. I am shocked that Sheryl McCollum cuddled up to this and kept calling her Melissa's mama, mama, mama. The woman participated in homicides. She was aiding and abetting. She should be in prison for the rest of her freaking life, but she got off because she testified against her husband. So she got probation. Unbelievable and inexcusable. That woman should be in prison forever. Why you would give her the time of day, I do not know. And she says, well, it doesn't matter because, she lost her daughter. I don't give a frick about her mama's feelings. She didn't care about anybody else's daughters, mothers. She didn't care about anybody else. She is a criminal. So I have issues with this. And she also seems to be kind of in with the father, Carl, writing letters back and forth. And at some point, it is stated by Norma Patton, Melissa's mama, that she was but she wanted to write a book. I don't know if that's true because I can't believe Norma Patton anyway, because I think she's a pathological liar. But hey, I think there may be some truth there because she's like really soft on Carl, who is a psychopath who killed 5 different people brutally without any kind of compassion, whatever. But she's like, oh, he feels sorry now. Get out of here. I don't understand it. And she didn't follow the evidence. Let me show you something before I go into the whole case that was said right up front. And I'm like appalled. Zone 7 celebrates its 100th episode in alignment with the arrest that solved. It did not solve the case. You are an evidence person. This is what I've always thought you were. This is your thing, evidence. But you ignored all the evidence in this case. You were willing to go with theories and imagination and all kinds of crap, but not evidence. And you're actually claiming that you helped solve this case. This is absolutely outrageous. The arrest that solved the 25-year-old case of Melissa Wolfenbarger. Crime scene investigator Sheryl McCollum is joined by Norma and Tina, the mother and sister of Melissa Wolfenbarger, to discuss the complexities of the cold case. By the way, two people who have an agenda, two people you cannot believe anything they say, along with those letters from Daddy you can't believe. But you're sitting there as a criminologist, accepting everything they say as fact. I don't get it. I'm absolutely shocked. The unwavering dedication from numerous supporters involved, and ultimately which led to the arrest of Melissa's husband, Christopher Wolfenberger. And you all should be ashamed. Absolutely 100% ashamed, because there was never solid evidence, anything even close to evidence to arrest Christopher Wolfenberger. Even if you think he did it, there wasn't any real evidence. And the fact that you would push this agenda, I don't get it. I'm shocked, because this should not have happened. And I think the prosecutors, the prosecution went with this because they had the media behind them, and they kept showing this picture. This dude doesn't look good. This dude looks creepy. Okay, he does have a criminal record. He admits he has a criminal record. I'm not saying the guy was a great guy. Here's a picture of him, though. This is what he looked like when he was with Melissa. It's like a baby, for God's sakes. And he was like so incredibly young when this all happened. Let me just show you a picture of them. When they had the two kids. Here they are with the two children. Okay, I'm not saying a guy his age can't kill his wife and dismember her and do all the things that supposedly have done. But I'm just saying, they keep showing the older picture where he's, and not an attractive picture. They keep showing that one. But then there's murder daddy, and then there's murder helper mommy. I mean, she grew up with these criminals, and you can sit there and complain about this guy because he was kind of like a loser at the time, which he was. But hey, seriously, I mean, I honestly don't get it. So anyway, I find this whole thing absolutely atrocious. Now, by the way, if you're new to the channel, I forgot to even do my whole spiel because I'm so amazed and appalled by this whole thing. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. And if you want to be in the chat room with these lovely people, please do click on Patreon below and join, and check my playlist. Okay, I can't even go further with that because I'm going to check some of your comments before I get into everything. Wow. You have trouble feeling bad for her. Well, why shouldn't you? Why should you feel bad for her? She never felt bad for one of the people that was murdered. She never felt bad for any of them. Now, those people have mothers and children. She didn't give a crap. So while I am concerned that Melissa was murdered. Oh, I'll take that back. I can't even say she was murdered. And that's going to be a whole nother issue. Homicide was never proven. So that's another reason it's kind of hard to arrest a guy, convict him for a cause of death that doesn't even exist. Well, you never know what the cause of death is. The manner of death was never homicide because nobody knew the manner of death because nobody knew the cause of death. But you can arrest him anyway. At any rate, so I do feel for Melissa because she's dead. I feel a zippo for her. I could care less about her and her little feelings. I don't give a crap. And I think I'm going to get into why I think they may be phony. And so say this is going to be a wild ride that it's a wild ride. It's one of the craziest things I've ever run into. I say I would like to write a book and I never want to write books. So, all right. let's get to the story behind all of this. Now, in order to understand the story properly, I am going to go to, and buckle up. Yeah, buckle up. Please buckle up, because it is nuts. I am going to go back in time to Carl, the one who's accused of murdering 5 people. Oh, no, get back. He convicted of murdering 5 people. And he confessed. So he did it. He murdered 5 people. And his lovely wife, who helped him murder 5 people and got off and got some probation because she testified against him. Because he was, one of the things people say, why would you testify against him? Well, because he was caught dead to rights. That's why. And she, by testifying against him, he was hoping she was hoping she'd get out of it all. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And she was also, I think, taking care of her kids at the time. So she wanted her kids. And this is going to be a whole nother thing about who was wanting somebody's kids. And mostly for whatever perverted purposes that they wanted them for. Let me go to this guy. So this is Carl Patton. He's often called a serial killer. He is not a serial killer. And he gets very upset if you call him a serial killer. He says, I'm not a serial killer like Ted Bundy. I don't kill people just over and over again just for some sick thing. I only do it because they were a problem to my family. No, dude. You killed them because you had a monetary advantage when you killed them, because you're pissed off at them, because you're a sick son of a bitch. That's why. But anyway, his name is Carl Miller Patton. He was born in 1949. The whole, by the way, this is one of the worst Wikipedia pages I've ever seen. So everything's mostly wrong in here. But he committed 5 murders across Georgia from 1973 to 1977 with multiple accomplices. And the accomplice issue is also questionable because the accomplices are dead. So it's only his word that the accomplices were accomplices. So anyway, in 2003, he was tested. There was DNA testing. I'll get to that. And he was arrested for the murders. He pleaded guilty. Okay. Now, let me try to explain this to you, how basically it worked. All right. So these are 4 of his victims right here. All right. So it's a very in-depth case, which, as I say, if I were going to write any book, this would be it, because there's so much information, and I can't do this in a 2-hour. So I'm going to try to just get you to understand the basics of it, because there's just no other way I can do it. All right. From an article written way back when, in probably 1970s, this is called Puzzle of 5 Corpses, Twisted Path of Murder. It was the last day of fall in 1977. Crisp and sunny, as a Fayette County duck hunter stalked the banks of the Flint River. So, by the way, Carl Patton, Melissa's father, is called the Flint River Killer. That's appropriate. Serial killer is not appropriate. He killed multiple people, but he's not a serial killer in the sense of that's, no. So anyway, this guy stumbled on a corpse, and is the first piece of a grisly puzzle that has tantalized the police for the last 10 months. Now, I want you to pay attention. This is extremely important. So this is in 1977. One of the things that is claimed by Mama is, and by Sheryl McCollum, is that Melissa knew nothing about what Daddy did wrong, because he wasn't arrested. So what, it was 2003? He wasn't arrested in 2003, so he got away with this for forever and ever. And I thought when I first heard this, that the reason was because I didn't know who committed these crimes. And so so all those years, Daddy could be pretending to be a nice daddy, although he was considered part of the Dixie Mafia, which was a pretty nasty group of people. Even if, I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway, he was acting as Carl was acting as the enforcer for his uncle, this guy. And so he was beating up people, and because he was drug dealing. And so there was all kinds of stuff that Carl was involved in, which are basically all criminal activities. And they called him part of the Dixie Mafia. In other words, he was a dangerous fellow. But somehow Melissa grew up and had no clue. Get out of here. That's what they keep pushing. And I just don't understand why they're pushing this crap, because this crime and the fact that Carl was likely that was the number one suspect for these crimes, was known by the police and the families, and also that she was involved. So there's this, it's not like a big fat secret. So I'm just annoyed like heck that this Melissa grew up and had no clue. By the way, when these happened in 1977, Melissa was a baby. Okay, Tina was 7 years older. So a little bit, so Tina might have been more aware. But the point being that when they grew up and they weren't that far away from where they grew up, where all this happened, it's like there was not probably total silence. They probably had a clue that mom and dad were criminals. And if mom and dad were criminals and likely psychopaths, this was not a healthy house to grow up in. And wait till you hear what happened in that house. They're just going to like blow your mind away. I mean, it's like, this is a sick household. These are sick people raising poor Melissa and Tina. And to sit there and say that, oh, they just grew up all happy and the parents just loved each other and they loved the kids is such garbage. And Sheryl McCollum, that you push this bothers the hell out of me. You're a criminologist and you have every right to say these people are sick people and they probably manipulated and harmed their children. But you didn't say that. And it bugs me. Anyway, back to this. So they found this body in the river, in the Flint River. This is the first piece of a grisly puzzle that has tantalized police for the last 10 months. They have since linked the corpse to 4 others found shot and dumped in rivers or roadsides south of Atlanta. It is a tale of love triangles, professional hit jobs, drug traffic, and friendships gone sour, investigators say. As far as in friendships going sour, I don't know about that. I think that Carl Patton just liked killing people. They believe the motives behind the killings range from profit to wrath to cover up. 100% accurate. Investigators from Fayette and Butts County Sheriff's Office departments, they joined together. So they actually worked together too, because the bodies were in 2 different areas. So they actually joined together, which is pretty cool. And they found another corpse, a 6th corpse. Okay, they got a bunch of them. Anyway, Carl Patton got nailed. He got nailed for 4. He admitted to the 5th. But the 5th one is really going to be interesting. All right. The suspects know who they are, and they know we know. We're just not quite ready yet. So this is Fred Wyatt. He was the uncle of Carl. Okay, so he was a family member, an uncle. He had a rough reputation, spent about 20 years in prison for robbery, car theft, and assorted other crimes. This is a lovely bunch of people. He was last released in 1972 at the age of 40. In early 1973, he moved to Lakewood Avenue in Atlanta to live with Marie and Richard Russell Jackson. That marked Jackson's body. So he went to move with, wait a minute, let me get this straight now. Okay, he moved to live with Marie and Richard. I think this, okay, wait a minute, let me find Marie. I'm trying to get this straight. If I screw this up, I apologize again. And if I ever write this book, I might have it correct. I think this is Marie. Anyway, he moved in with them. And then that March, Jackson's body, Marie's husband, was found beside Fairview Road in Henry County. He had been dumped there late at night. The case has not been solved. Soon afterwards, Wyatt, okay, wait a minute. Wyatt and Marie, was that Marie? No, wait a minute. I forgot who's who. And Marie, not her. Okay, I think it's the other. Okay, I think it's this one. There's so many people I can't keep up with it. And Marie moved into a trailer home, and they lived there 5 years together, common law. Okay, but in the early 1977, he met and apparently fell in love with 45-year-old Betty Jo Eflin of Fort Worth, Texas, who had moved to Atlanta to try to start a trucking brokerage business. All right, so he began spending up to 3 weeks at a time with her and later left the other woman. And then Marie, I think that's Marie, she applied for $24,000 in life insurance and car insurance for Fred Wyatt, with herself as a beneficiary within 2 months of Wyatt's death. the car insurance would pay survivors and lost wage benefits if Wyatt died in an auto accident. Had to be an auto accident. So then what happened was Wyatt went on a long-haul trucking run to California and New Mexico. When he returned, she was gone. She was gone. She just disappeared. All right. So it gets so convoluted, and I can't get all the details on one page because for some reason it doesn't seem to exist. But I'm going to try to explain this to you. All right. So, okay, wait a second here. All right. They call her Betty Jo. I don't know what they called her over there. That was weird. Anyway, Betty Jo. So eventually, what happens? She goes missing. Her body's found in the river. He is found later, and he's found on the railroad tracks that his car ran into a train. So, oh my God, I think it's here. Okay, so there's this car smashed into a train, you see, and therefore he died of an auto accident so that the other lady could collect the money. But they eventually exhumed his body and found he had a bullet in his head. So he was killed and put into the car and then smashed into a train. So he was killed by his nephew, Carl. And Carl claims that, okay, Carl's got a friend. Where's his friend? Let me find his friend. Okay, Carl has a friend. There he is. That's his best friend. So when he was in high school, Carl, the father of Melissa, these two double dated. And so did Carl and Norma, okay? So they were like friends who always double dated. So he supposedly was in criminal stuff with good old Carl. And they went over to this house to get Uncle, but he wasn't home because he was away. And she was there. She said, "Come on in, guys." And so they came in, and supposedly, you see, Carl was pissed off that she had taken him away from the woman he considered his aunt. And so he was mad at her. But for some reason, this guy got all like antsy and shot her. Carl didn't do it. Of course, he ends up dead. So Carl can blame him on just about everything. So she ends up dead and thrown in the river. And then he ends up getting hit by a car going into a train, which wasn't true because he got shot in the head too. And then these two get killed. They end up dead. They disappear. And so Carl and Norma say, "Oh, we were going to go away on this little vacation with them, but they got in an argument, so we didn't go on vacation." But they never cared where they went to. So they were both found. Where was she found? I forgot what locations they were found, but they were both dead. And again, Carl blames, Carl couldn't blame him this time. So Carl told his wife he wanted to get rid of them because she was going to open her big fat mouth that he and Carl were involved in these killings. So they invited them over to their house. And while Grandpa was sleeping on the sofa and the kids were probably sleeping in the house, the baby and the 7-year-old, although Norma claims 7-year-old wasn't there and she keeps changing her stories. So anyway, these two come over and Norma knows they're coming over to get killed. And so then Carl shoots both of them. And then Norma helps him move the bodies in sleeping bags and throw them in the river. So that's kind of the background to Melissa's fathers and mothers, what they were doing all this time. Now, they knew, this is where it gets really important. In 1977, so they were, 1973 was, it's so confusing. It's very confusing. This woman's first husband was killed in 1973. Then they were killed in 1977. Anyway, the police go after them. It's not like, I want to tell you, if you want to watch a really fascinating show, go watch this, Swamp Murders. It's on Investigation Discovery. It's called Swamp Murders Chain Reaction. It's season 1, episode 2, and it goes through this whole bunch of stuff. What I found interesting about it the most interesting part was that when this happened, remember when I talked about when this occurred, this was so they were doing, I think it was 1977. 1977. They were investigating this. They found out that this woman had this money, and then they found out that this guy was involved with his aunt as far as the money goes, and there was this check written. No, I can't get into all that. But anyway, there were these bullets in the heads of people, and they were the same. And then they went out to Carl's house and they found blood in his car, and they found that the victims had been put in sleeping bags, that they had sleeping bags that looked just like the sleeping bags that were used. And then there was a pillow with blood on it in the living room where they were shot. And the blood was, get this one, type A blood on the pillow is only 5% of the population, which was her blood. Liddy's blood is 5% of the population. So their friends disappear. Her blood ends up on the pillow. Blood like just the 5% of the population. And then they go over to Carl and Betty Jo's house. And let's see, wait a minute, what do we got here? They steal all her crap. They take her jewelry, the lamps, the plates. This is the daughter saying, "What the heck?" They went to the house and stole everything from our house. They were from my parents' house, and they said, "I got over." The police brought her over with them when they went into the house, and she found that they had stolen a photo book, and then they show this little scene in the movie that Norma's wearing the vest of her mother when she tries to, at which point she tries to reach over and strangle her. She's wearing my mother's vest. What the hell? So they have got blood in the car, which is the blood that ends up matching Joe Cleveland's body. This guy ended up in the car trunk. He had obla, which is more common, but that was in the car. On the pillow was A, which matched her, which is only 5% of the population. All their stuff was stolen, was sitting over in Carl and Norma's house. Guess what? They weren't charged with murder. The prosecutors decided they didn't have enough. They had no witnesses and they had no weapon. So in spite of everything else, they decided not to prosecute them. So from 1977 onward to 25 years later, when they had DNA that proved that the blood on the pillow was actually Liddy's, they lived free. And I don't know, they said, oh, he didn't commit any more crimes. We don't know that he didn't commit tons more crimes. We have no idea what he was doing. But what my point is that Melissa and Tina grew up with these criminal parents who were the number one suspects in at least 4 homicides. And they had to know about it along the way. So when it's claimed by Mama and sister that Melissa wouldn't have known anything about her dad, anything her dad had done, so she couldn't have confronted her father. Garbage, just absolute garbage. She could have confronted her father because, she's, it's not like it was unknown. I thought originally she wouldn't have any clue because they didn't know who committed these crimes. They did from 1977. They knew exactly who committed the crimes. They just didn't take it to court. Now, mind you, they took this guy to court with 0 physical evidence at all. But they wouldn't take her and her husband to court with all the crap that was all over their house and in their vehicle. Go figure, insane. So I'm going to check on your comments and I'm going to go to the next part of this. Whew. Dennis Rader but this is different. Dennis Rader hadn't been a suspect that was known when she was growing up. These people, that's what I'm pointing out. This woman and her husband, Melissa's mom and dad, were known suspects in 4 homicides because they were all died with their stuff in their house and the blood and all that stuff. They were known to be most likely the suspects from 1977 on. And it's not, First of all, they're not serial killers. Get again, they're not serial. That's a lot of circumstantial. Well, it wasn't even just circumstantial in the case. They had blood evidence. That's physical evidence. It wasn't blood. They had the physical evidence of the blood in the car that matched the woman. They had the blood evidence. I'm sorry, the blood evidence on the pillow matched 5% of the population, which matched the one woman. Blood in the car matched the husband. They'd stolen all the crap from the people's house. They were number one suspects for a damn good reason. Oh, that's a whole nother thing. During the trial, there was a friend. People said, well, she was a heroin addict and she was like kind of sketchy. But she said that it was a creepy house, that Melissa was locked in a room. And she does eventually admit that she did do stuff to prevent Melissa from going off with her boyfriend and other things. She did trap her in the house. So this woman is as scary as all gets. Yeah, no, that's true. But let's talk about this case and not BTK. Okay, that's all I'm pointing out. Don't go off to something that's not focusing on this case. Yes, they can compartmentalize. There are serial killers who raise their children and don't kill them. And the whole point here is that it is stated that serial killers don't kill their children. Well, first of all, she was not a serial killer, neither was her husband. They were murderers. They were, in my opinion, exhibited psychopathy, rage, doing whatever appealed to them at the time, killing people that pissed them off. Could she have pissed them off? Because it stated that she and her husband were cleared. And I cannot find one piece of information how they were cleared. Because by the time, it was 4 years after her demise, that Carl was the DNA finally caught up with Carl. And that's what supposedly identified her, which I just want to point this out. Maybe I should point this out right now because it's one of these things, again, it's just absolutely insane. Why wasn't her DNA and her husband's DNA used to find out if this was their daughter, if the head was found right near his place of work? Why didn't they come forward and give their DNA to see if it was their daughter? Why did 4 years go by and her husband had been arrested, and then because they had his DNA, and they said, oh, why don't you check and see if it matches? Isn't that a little suspicious? So, first of all, serial killers have killed their children. I just want to point that out because they're psychopaths and they don't care about their children. They use their children as props. When you have people like this, they use people as props, children as props. If the children get in there, annoy them or whatever, they can wipe them out. There is no proof, as far as I can find out. And if you all have some proof that they were cleared on anything, because of 4 years before they identified her, how would they clear mom and dad who were in the area at the time? How were they going to clear them? They weren't out of town. How would they ever clear them? I just don't get that. And it's the fact that police have the gall to say that and don't identify how they clear them. You clear somebody because they aren't in the country. You clear somebody because they're in prison at the time that the person gets killed. But if you don't have any proof of where they were at the time she died, you've got no way to clear them. I have no idea how that's possible, but I think the police at that point were pushed into believing it was him. They were going for him because he was the husband and he didn't report her missing and there was supposedly domestic abuse. So therefore it must be him. Well, is he a good suspect? Sure, he's a good suspect, but that doesn't eliminate mom and dad who are killers. It's just outrageous that would get rid of them. All right. So, all right. So, yeah, they did kill other family members. The uncle went down. Yeah, that's for sure. All right. Now I want to go back. Okay, so after all these people died, after she and hubby, mama, and hubby killed all these people, let's see what happened. I read you a little from the article about when she went missing, but I want to read it to you again. This is from Dateline. And it's fascinating because you're going to see stuff in here which makes you go, what? What? All right. Let me go back. Oh, shoot. Let me find it. All right. Let's go back. Remember mama, says, okay, so they heard last time they heard from her was at Thanksgiving. Then Christmas came and she didn't show up to get that little present of her drunk grandpa with her, and because that was her big request, and she didn't call or anything. So when Christmas arrived, there's no word from Melissa, and she did not show up to celebrate the holidays. After the holidays, Melissa's parents decided to drive to Atlanta from their home in Locust Grove, Georgia, to check on her. Now, mind you, the last time they heard from her was Thanksgiving. Christmas goes by, and actually, they did not go right after Christmas. They actually did not drive, supposedly, because she changed her story, to Atlanta, which is where they were living at the time, until 4 months after her birthday. She says, oh, and then February came, and she didn't even say happy birthday to me. So that's when I became concerned. 4 months had gone by. Now, mind you, she's a grandmother, and she's a mother of this girl, and 4 months has gone by, and she hasn't even heard from her. Now, when they said this is what I think is crazy. After the holidays, they decided to drive to Atlanta from their home in Locust Grove, Georgia, and check on her in person. And she said she didn't like driving to Atlanta because it was so far away. Of course, her husband was still not in prison yet, so why the hell couldn't they go together? But now supposedly they went together. I want to show you a picture of where Locust Grove is, because I'm thinking it's 10 hours away, it's 12 hours away. It's going to be this long trip, right? Check this out. It's 35 minutes away. 35 minutes. Are you telling me you can't drive 35 minutes to go see your daughter, to find out what happened to her, so she doesn't show up at Christmas? You haven't seen your grandkids either because they're with his mom. Now, there's a whole custody issue here too, by the way. She gave over temporary custody to his mother. Why, you ask? And this gets very confusing. Because they were in and out of the criminal justice system. She was on probation, and then she broke probation, failed on that. She didn't do what she was supposed to, so she was in jail for the last couple months of her life. She gave over temporary custody to his mom, and and so there were they had problems. I mean, she had problems too. So they want to point everything to her. She was just the most sweet, wonderful girl. No, she had issues. She ran away. She gave her custody of her kids. And they're saying, oh, because he manipulated her. No, because she had issues. Meanwhile, Mama, as Sheryl calls it, wouldn't drive 35 freaking minutes to find out what happened to her daughter. And get this one, she's got her husband with her, who's a killer. Her husband is a brutal killer. He's killed 5 people. But they're scared to go confront. I want to show you a picture of him again. Let's look at what he looked like at the time instead of the scary picture and all that crap. Let's look at what he looked like at the time that this all happened. This guy, get out of here. These two monsters couldn't go drive 35 minutes to find out what happened to their daughter because this guy was scary as hell. This guy who shoots people, dumps their bodies, and this woman who helps him do that were scared to go see son-in-law, wouldn't drive the 35 minutes to check out what happened to their daughter. It's weird because the accusation is he didn't care about what happened to his wife, or he knew what happened to his wife, but he claimed she just left town, and therefore he must have killed her because he didn't report to the police or anything else. Well, neither of these suckers. Maybe he did think she left town because apparently, according to him, she was trying to get away from these two because she had lots of issues. They had actually gone out to California. They tried to flee to the West Coast before to start new lives. Now, they were a little criminal. They were. But he was saying, let's see what he says. He says, when Christopher Wolfenberger was questioned by police, he told them Melissa had left on her own. He then refused to cooperate. Okay, fine. They added that he had an extensive criminal history with a history of family violence. The history of family violence comes mostly from mom and the sister who are claiming this. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't violence, but I'm just saying this whole domestic violence thing that Sheryl McCollum just rolls in on is mostly coming from the psychopathic parents. All right. So he said, yeah, I do have a criminal history, but I'm not a murderer. He said, Melissa's disappearance at the end of 1998 wasn't anything out of the ordinary. We're not talking about one day she was there and the next day she was not. I just figured she'd come back when she was able to. He explained that Melissa took on multiple shifts at Waffle House to make extra money and would stay at the hotel instead of commuting home. And supposedly said maybe she was having an affair. We don't know about that. Wolfenberger added that she also been creating fake IDs and social security cards with the goal of their family moving away and starting a new life in California. I'm not denying I have a criminal history. We were, like Bonnie and Clyde, just small-time criminals, but we didn't do anything bad. We were just trying to build a better life in California. California was a dream. And when Melissa didn't return home, he told Dateline he figured she changed her identity and went on her dream without him. That's the reason I didn't report her missing. She wanted to get away from her parents and from this place. So she had to become someone else. Well, she was on probation. She was all kinds of things were going wrong with this girl. I just thought she'd come back when things settled down. Do we have to believe him? No. But is it possible? Yes. If by the way, guess whose other daughter ran away? Let's look at the other daughter. This one, Tina. She ran away, left her kids with mom. His mom says, oh, Melissa would never have left her kids. Well, Melissa gave up custody of her kids to her in-laws. She left her kids and went running off someplace, and she was taking care of them. So she ran away mom had no idea where the heck she was. So both of the girls had major issues of running away and deserting their children. So get out of here. Now this guy, well, he was, let me go back to the picture at this time. He's I think he's 21 years old here. He's this goofy little criminal, stupid character, like he says. And he's got 2 kids. And if she disappears, I can believe he goes, well, she probably just ran off. I'm not going to go to the police after all. Police don't like me. They don't like me. And she broke probation. So my mom was going to take care of the kids, and one day maybe she'll show back up. That's not unreasonable to think that he would do that. So that's what he says. So anyway, meanwhile, mom and dad don't bother to drive 35 freaking minutes to find out where their daughter is because they're scared of him. The 5-time killer is scared of him. Get out of here. Turns out, she says in court and elsewhere on the podcast that she hated him from the very first day. She hated him so much he had evil in his eyes. Take a look in the mirror at yourself and look over at your husband. But he's evil. He's only a little kid. He's a jerk maybe, but he's a little kid. But what did he do? He had the audacity to run off with their kid. That's probably it. Every time he showed up at the house, she called the police for trespassing over and over and over again, she says. And then she wonders why he doesn't want to have anything to do with the 2 of them. Could that have something to do with it? Oh, why else could he want his wife not to have anything to do with these creepy characters? Let's see if I can find it here. Okay. Well, I gotta figure out where I put it. Okay, I think it's in here. Oh, at some point, did Melissa say anything to you about making a complaint against Mr. Jackson? Yes. What was that about? This is in court. This is Norma talking now. It was that he had molested her. Okay. And how old was she when she made that claim? I think it was right before her 9th birthday. Is that when she told you? Is that when she said it happened? Or was that, so anyway, it goes on here. Did you go to the police? Yes. And was Mr. Jackson indicted? No, he wasn't. So there's no prosecution. Oh, and who is this Jackson guy? Oh, he was the son of the Jackson guy that your husband killed. Okay, so now mind you, he killed Jackson way back when in 1977 when she was a baby. So he wasn't killing the father of that guy who molested his daughter because he molested his daughter. No, he killed the father way earlier. Then some reason this guy's son is allowed to come in the house and molest Melissa at 8 years old. And they claimed they went to the police and it wasn't prosecuted. So I don't believe anything this woman says. I think she's a pathological liar. So your daughter's being molested in the house by some guy. Oh, it gets worse. Check this one out. Do you recall an episode where Melissa found a dead baby in a clothes hamper in your house? Yes, says Norma. Wasn't your daughter Tina prosecuted for that? Yes, she was. Really? Gee, that's just not a big deal, right? Let's go back and look at Tina. So Tina was prosecuted for killing her baby. Now I can't find any information about this dead baby. So Melissa was 14. She was 21. Dead baby ends up in a hamper in the house, and she gets prosecuted for it. I don't know how big the dead baby was. If it was obviously miscarriage, I don't know that she should be prosecuted for it, but she was prosecuted for it. I don't know how much time I don't know anything about it because I can't find any information. And she was an adult, so it's not like it was hidden in juvenile records. There's so much information here. As I said, if I were going to write a book, I would be down in Georgia, like ripping apart everything to find out all these details. But she dumped her baby, her newborn baby, in the hamper, and Melissa found it. So Melissa's been molested by this creepos, some creepo family member. Well, not family member, some creepo guy that her father killed the father of. And she has a baby by somebody. Sue, just to point something out that you haven't heard yet. You see this woman? Supposedly, when her body was found, the crotch was cut out of her pants. They say she was raped. Who would she have been raped by? The guy who killed her as a post-mortem? So maybe he was a rapist too. And if he was a rapist too, who said his two girls that grew up in his house weren't molested by this creep? And I don't know who that baby, I don't know if they ever did DNA on that baby that was dead in a hamper. But when she supposedly, at some point, right before she stayed at Mama brought her back to their house. And she stayed there for a wee bit, and then she went back. And then she claimed about 3 months later that she was pregnant in front of the judge. And the question was she doing that just to get sympathy? Or was she really pregnant? Was she pregnant by some guy she was having an affair with? Or was she pregnant because she was staying at Daddy's house? And then she ends up dead. But Daddy's not a suspect. Mommy's not a suspect. They're cleared. Only her husband is a suspect. So now you've kind of got, God almighty, some of the issues here. I'll check your comments, and I'm going to go to the actual crime information on the murder. Maybe incest was going on, says Clarissa, and that's why they left home so early. Maybe they kept running away because Daddy was a creepo. But I can't say I don't have the proof, but babies ending up, dead babies in hampers, little 8-year-olds being molested. This household was garbage. They got a drunk grandfather on the sofa. Daddy is a 100% criminal of all sorts, Dixie Mafia or whatever, 5-time murderer. Mommy helping out with, and she knew about the murders before they happened, never informed the police, helped get rid of the bodies, and she gets probation because she ratted her husband out, supposedly. But there's another whole story there. Supposedly, one of the reasons she was willing to give information was because she was trying to keep the children she had with her, which I guess were her children. So I don't know whether there was a whole thing about getting to keep, like her, maybe at that point, the children were over at Melissa's in-laws' house, and so she didn't have them, but she had her children. And if she went to prison, she wouldn't keep her children, because it seems like Tina's not all together there either. So they're just trying to keep whatever they're trying to keep, little possessions. And then, according to during the trial, she was asked whether the reason she and her husband started this whole thing about about the husband killing and the daughter was because she was hoping that would get him out of prison on parole, even though that would never happen. She believed it. She said in court to the end, she believed it. And she believed that Sheryl McCollum would help get him out on parole too, because Sheryl McCollum was sharing letters with him and saying he had reformed and all this kind of crap. and so it's when you wonder about that nonsense. So anyway, he was sending these letters, like there's a dear Sheryl, blah 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 blah. So anyway, to point out a couple things that were said in these letters. My name is Carl Patton, and I am the father of Melissa Dawn Patton Wolfenbarger, whose case has been profiled in Zone 7 several times. I'm currently being housed in a state prison for murders I committed in 1977, 46 years ago. Coincidentally, the same year, my mother died and Melissa was born. I have said many times, God sent me Melissa to deal with grief and heartache of losing my mother. Get out of here, you piece of crap. In other words, Melissa was a gift from God, as all children are. She was a special gift because she was part of me and her mother, my true soulmate and best friend. Well, I guess she's a great soulmate because she went along with all your murders. When you're a self-centered, selfish, arrogant perpetrator, which that he's correct about because he's learned how to say that because he's doing therapy in prison, as I once was. No, dude, you still are. And Chris Wolfenbarger is, because now he's saying his son-in-law is just like he was. So he's saying I was one of these people, and now Chris Wolfenbarger definitely was. And you neither care or nor think about who you hurt. When you kill someone, you not only hurt that person, but everyone else that loves that person. I have yet to forgive myself and probably never will. Living with that guilty conscience will be part of my punishment. And he says, may God have mercy on me and forgive us both. To the killer of, I'm not sure why that's Dawn. I don't know. Repentance is the beginning of forgiveness. So man up. Tell your children what really happened to their mother and why. Real truth. Release them from the lie that the mother did not want them and that she deserted them. Because everyone that knew Melissa knows that is not true. To Sheryl Mack of Zone 7, the DA, love of the Atlanta DA's office, Karen Greer, Detective Stein, and everyone involved in keeping Melissa's case in the public mind, thank you from the bottom of my heart. He was looking for parole. She wanted him out. She wanted to, she's like, I can't wait to be in his arms again. He murdered 5 people. He should have gotten the death penalty. But do you think he should come home? And you were using, in my opinion, this whole Melissa thing for your advantage. And this is what one of the victims' kids said, by the way. Like Melissa's kids, I was so young and had to grow up not knowing that someone did that to my mom, and we did not know who did it. Well, in our case, we knew, but there was no justice. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone's children. As far as Carl and Norma, I have no sympathy for them, but I have every sympathy in the world for their kids. Right. No sympathy for these pieces of garbage. Kids, yes. And I do hope he's begging everybody for forgiveness. But I agree with you, Phil. There's no way for me to know. This is what Cheryl's saying. Okay, he's begging everyone for forgiveness. She goes, well, there's no way of knowing if it's true. It isn't true. You're a criminologist. You know they're lying dogs. I don't know why you're backing them as if he's reformed just because he's not really a serial killer. Because he wrote you these sweet letters. Oh, maybe it's so bad. Let's see what this person said. Okay, so God almighty. But so I think the whole thing about this is, let's go back to remember when she said, we didn't know for 4 years that was our daughter's head next to the place where Chris worked. Now, mind you, they had 4 freaking years. 4 years. Her head was found. Her body parts were found. She and her husband were still, he was not arrested yet. They were still living there. They not once offered the DNA to find out if that was their daughter's head next. Now, obviously she disappeared. They thought he killed her. And her head is found right next to the place he lives. I mean, lives and works. And they don't offer the DNA. Why not? Why did they never go and confront this guy? Why did they never go to find out what happened to her? So you answer these questions for me. So the whole prosecution and Carol so on, he's so guilty, he's so guilty. These people, she and her husband, are way more guilty in my opinion, because they didn't seem to care what happened to her. They didn't look for her. They didn't try to solve anything. They just waited 4 years. And then when her husband got arrested, suddenly like, oh, we're concerned about what happened to our daughter. Why don't you? And her husband's DNA then matched, which of course existed. His DNA and her DNA existed 4 years prior, and they never offered it. But suddenly when he's arrested, they're all over. Oh, Chris did this terrible thing to her, blah, 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 blah. So I think they were looking for parole. I think they were looking to get in good with the detectives. So the question comes down to, they could be doing it just to get in good with the detective so they could get him out of prison, which is ludicrous because this woman's like brain dead. I mean, idiot. Because he's never going to get out of prison no matter what you do, because he killed 5 people and he should never get out of prison. He never would, just because he's helping with solve this case. Anyway, so, and now he is the number 1 suspect. And she and the sister are pushing all 3 of them are pushing it. He's writing Sheryl saying, Chris did it, Chris did it, Chris did it. They're saying he was abusive, Chris did it, Chris did it. And look, you know, he didn't try to find her, and he didn't report her to the disappearance to the police, and the body part showed up next to his place of work, so he clearly did it. Really? Okay. I'll check some of your comments, and I'm going to get into the details of the actual case. So many gaps, huge gaps, because they knew. That is what I wonder. Why would they know it was Melissa's head and body parts? And if they knew, why wouldn't they want to do something about it? Yeah. Chris says, and the last phone conversation with Melissa sounded too sweet to be true. Yeah. Apparently Melissa was having real issues with having anything to do with their family because they were killers. And you have to wonder why, if she was going to give up custody of her kids, she'd give it up to Chris's family and not her own, because she lived with her own family and she knew what they were. God. Yeah. Yes, over the years, yes. I was on, I believe I was on Nancy Grace first, and then Sheryl came on Nancy Grace, but Sheryl lives in Atlanta. So, you know, I've always been distant because I'm in Washington, D.C., and so I never even met Nancy Grace, even though I did a show for over a decade. Sheryl, on the other hand, lived in the area. So they became friends, and they do CrimeCon together. So they're very close, yes. And some of the people she brought on her Zone 7 are excellent professionals and very interesting to listen to. And I haven't really followed her career. I know she's very, very victim oriented and very family oriented as far as the family of victims, and that's her thing. And she does this thing on evidence, but I'm blown away by this case because I don't understand how the way she's looking at this is not the evidence. She's not looking at the evidence, and it just completely freaks me out. I mean, I don't get it. Okay, so what was the evidence? Okay, so this is why the prosecution absolutely just failed dismally in this case, and why it took them. I say it shouldn't have taken them. Shouldn't have taken the jury so damn long. So anyway, let's go back to when it happened. All right. This is what this little creature guy looked like. He looks like he doesn't look like a seasoned criminal. He's a goofball. He's like, does stupid stuff. As he says, he did commit crimes, but they're kind of dumb crimes. So don't look at the picture of him later on. Just look at this. Okay. Now I'm not saying that he couldn't have killed his wife. I'm just saying that was there evidence he killed his wife? Okay. So theoretically what happened is she vanished, and he said, and he didn't report it. So time went on. They didn't bother to go drive 35 minutes to Atlanta to find out what happened to their daughter. And then they finally found the head. Okay, back at this location. So let's look at the head location. Okay, so this is the picture of where is it? Okay, here we go. All right, so what happened was they lived someplace else first, and then they moved to this location, 824 Brookline Street. That's where they lived. And he worked at Action Glass, which is 3 minutes away. It's very close by. So this is the theory, that he either killed Melissa, Chris either killed Melissa in the house. Yeah, The theory is he killed her in the house. Now, is this a homicide? There's no cause of death. Therefore, there's no manner of death. What you have is somebody, there was no bullet, there were no shots to the head. So she wasn't shot in the head. There was no knife to the wound, knife nicks to the head, the skull, to the arms, to the legs. No knife wounds. She could have been strangled, but there wasn't any proof because the head was cut off and there wasn't proof that she was strangled. So there was no cause of death. If there's no cause of death, you can't come up necessarily with a homicide unless you have other information. Now, if they went to his house and they luminol, which they did, if they luminol the house and they saw blood all over the walls, they still wouldn't know if it's a homicide because she was cut up with a saw. I forgot what it's called. I actually studied this, but now I've forgotten the name of it. It's a saw that, it's not a hand saw. Zzz, that kind of saw. Anyway, because he worked at the glass place and they had saws like that at the glass place. And use a saw like that. Zzz, well, what happens is the blood goes everywhere because the saw throws it out. So you can't even then tell if it was a homicide just because somebody cuts up a body. Okay. Now, if there's evidence elsewhere that doesn't match a saw cutting through a body, then you might have some evidence of a homicide, like some stabbing. If it's just stabbed a whole bunch of times in the torso, which is missing, stabbed a whole bunch of times in the torso, and there's knife stuff on the walls. Okay, then you could say, well, that's not what a saw would have thrown off. So she was stabbed to death. Then you'd have a homicide. Right now, what you've got is somebody cutting up a body. That's not a homicide. Now, you could say, well, why the hell would somebody cut up a body? Perfectly reasonable. Now, for the most part, it is because it's a homicide, but it's not proof that it's a homicide. There have been people who have OD'd on drugs. She could have gone to somebody's house, OD'd on drugs. They freaked out. They're living in an apartment. They don't know how the hell to get her body out of the place. So they cut her up and put her in trash bags and carry her out and toss the body, the parts. It could have been drug overdose. There was one case, and I always thought it was the weirdest case. Guy goes to a bar, he gets trash drunk, picks up a woman who's trash drunk. They go up to his apartment. They go to bed together. They engage in sex, and what kind, I don't know. But he wakes up in the morning, she's dead. He apparently thought he killed her. He said, oh my God, my drunken state, I must have strangled her or something. He freaked out, but he can't get her out of the apartment, so he cuts her up. And he takes her body away. Well, it turned out she wasn't murdered. It was a natural death. I think she had some kind of heart attack or something. It was somehow they proved it. I don't know. It was overdose in a system. I don't know what it was, but they proved it. And he actually hadn't committed a homicide. So you can actually have a natural death if somebody does it to you. It's very rare, but it can happen. Overdose is more likely if somebody might do that. Those can happen. But the problem is they did not, in this case, have any proof of cause of death, nor could they say the manner of death was homicide. They could suspect it, but they couldn't prove it. So they arrested him for homicide when they had no proof of homicide, which to me is outrageous. Now, they went to his house, luminol and all that, zero blood in his house. Look, I think they checked his car, nothing there either. They had no physical evidence tying him to the scene at all. They had the trash bags, nothing there either. They had no DNA. They had no blood evidence. They had nothing. They had no weapon. Now, the saw issue, she was supposedly sawed up, but she was sawed up, so that's not an issue. It was true. And then there's this claim here. You are correct. They never could prove he stole it, but everybody believed in that company that they once stole that saw. There was some claim was made after those investigation stuff that he stole a saw from the company and it was never returned. There was never any proof of this. And I don't know how the questioning actually was handled. So I never know whether information was given and they're like, okay, yeah, I think he stole a saw. I don't know how that worked because sometimes detectives will give information hoping to get back the information. And that's the wrong way to interview because sometimes people will just go along with the program and they don't like the guy. They'll say, yeah, he stole a saw. He stole that saw. We can't prove it, but we all think he did it. So Did he steal a saw to cut up his wife? I don't know. I don't think there's zero proof of that. It's a claim. And there was no proof of her body being cut up at his home or any of the blood in the car. So that doesn't exist. Now, some say maybe he did it. Maybe he killed her at home, but cut her up over at the place of work. So somehow he got into the place of work in the middle of the night. I don't know if he has access to the place of work, and he chopped her up in there. And then there was lots of things you could clean with there. So cleaning, you had bleach and all kinds. So maybe cleaned up the place and then dumped her body parts, just chucked them nearby. He says an interesting thing. He says this. Let me read this. On June 3rd, 1999, more dismembered human remains were found in black trash bags in a wooded area between Hartford Place and Avon Avenue, right near where he worked. Sergeant Layton told Dateline that remains found were legs, arms, and feet, but a torso was never found. Keep the torso thing in mind. This is really important. I think it demonstrates that the murder was well planned. No. Means that murder happened, maybe, if it happened, and then you freaked. And the killer had the equipment to dismember and transport her remains. Okay, sometimes people do plan a murder, and they do have the equipment. At the time, the remains are unidentified because the parents didn't apparently want to identify their daughter's remains. Anyway, her mother, Norma, said she knew it was only a matter of time before the remains would be identified as her daughter. What? What? Only a matter of time, but she wasn't willing to give her DNA? Okay. So she continued to watch the news every day for 4 years. The fact that my baby girl was cut up just shows it was done by somebody evil. Again, look in the mirror. No normal person is going to cut up a human body. No, and no normal person is going to kill people and throw bodies into the river. It would take years before the remains found would be identified as Melissa. All right. In 2003, Melissa and Tina's father, Carl Millard Patton Jr., was arrested and later convicted for the 1977 murders of Fred Wyatt, Liddy Matthews Evans, and Evans' boyfriend, Joe Cleveland. The case was known as the Flint River Murders, blah, blah, blah. The family told Dateline that the testing of DNA in that case eventually led investigators to confirm the remains found in 1999 belonged to Melissa. They were like, oh, we should check out. Maybe his. Anyway, Norma, who testified against her husband in 2003, said his arrest was made it possible for someone to pay attention to Melissa's case. Maybe it's because she didn't want anybody to pay attention to the case until he had got arrested. So it was going well. In other words, Norma's still married to Melissa's father, who was questioned but quickly cleared. And this is where I see no evidence that he was cleared. I have no idea why. He's dead now, by the way. So he didn't get paroled, so she could spend her last days in his arms. And Tina, Melissa's sister, told Dateline she still talks to their father at his current address in Georgia prison, where he often talks about bringing his daughter's murderer to justice. Tina, you're a fool. Anyway, Tina added that, there was no doubt in their mind who killed Melissa, and it was never their father. Because, you wouldn't kill a family member, except his uncle. There's no doubt in my mind who did this to my sister, Tina said. It's been more than 20 years, and he's still walking free. Tina, you're highly manipulated by your parents. All right, so Sergeant Layton told Dateline that Melissa's husband, Christopher, was considered a person of interest in the case. An autopsy determined that her neck had been severed with a saw. He added that evidence was collected from her home in Brookline Avenue, but did not match other trace evidence collected from the scene, and no arrests had been made. There was DNA, but it didn't match. Okay. None of the evidence matched. I've got nothing to hide, Wolfenberger said. I had absolutely no reason to kill her. There was no insurance money. We didn't have any assets. There was no reason. There's no reason in the world for me to hurt her like that. And, could he have been jealous? Yeah. I mean, that is a reason. Could she have been pregnant by somebody else and he was pissed off? That is a reason. So he's exaggerating there. But he said, but here's what his point. Great point. As for the remains being discovered in such close proximity to his job, Wolfenberger told Dateline the possible connection to him is absurd. Who in their right mind kills somebody and dumps the body at their job? It just doesn't make sense. Well, he's correct. The guy had a car. The torso is missing. So if you're going to take the torso far away where it couldn't be found, wouldn't you take the rest of the body parts to where they couldn't be found as well? Why would you go and drive over to where your work is? Or if you cut her up at work, why would you just go out and go, oh, let me just chuck it right next to work, so when they find her head, they'll go, I think he did it. You would want her to, if you want her to disappear, you want her to disappear. You don't want her body parts to be found. That's nonsensical. So he's correct. That makes zero sense. He says it damn near destroyed me. He said, at the time, I really believed she changed her name and left for a better life and that she'd come back eventually. But it never happened that way. Okay, so he's a mess. There's no question that dude's a mess. But these people are killers. He's never been proven to be a killer. He's been proven to be a little, crap crime guy. And maybe he did get in fights with his wife. Well, why not? I mean, she was a mess. They're both a mess. These are killers. Now, what is the one reason, another reason you can think of, my people in the chat room, why the body parts would be found near his workplace? Yeah, he sure didn't want to hand over that DNA, did he? No dental records. Well, they eventually did use some dental records, but yeah. Would you be liable for cutting the body up? Yes, that's just because you're mutilating a corpse. Yes, you can get charged with that, sure. But unless they can prove that you killed them, you can't get charged with homicide. Tassel's made a good comment. What is it? I'm looking for Tassel's comment. Okay. So, sorry. So they went looking for her 4 months after she went missing, and then her pieces were found a few weeks after they visited the area. Well, is kind of interesting. Oh, this is interesting. Framing him. Torso could have been kept for necrophiliac acts, like you mean like the girl that they think was raped, who had the crotch cut out of her clothes, or identification marks. Very true. You think the parents dumped it there to frame him planted. All right. Now, so there are 3 possibilities. Let's go with all 3. The husband killed her and is such a moron, he just dumped the body parts right near his work. He is a stupid guy. I don't know. 2, she was killed by somebody else. That maybe she was having an affair and she was pregnant by the guy. And he's like, hey, I don't want that baby. So he kills her and he dumps the body parts over at his place to blame him. And then he gets rid of the torso because she's pregnant and he doesn't want that checked out. That's something, I guess. Or the third one would be the one that nobody says is possible, that somehow something happened with her and her parents, that maybe daddy did get her pregnant, because after all, she's been abused by people before, sexually assaulted by people before, and he apparently is claimed to be a rapist. Evidence pointing to that. And then there's Tina with the baby that's being chucked into the hamper. Could he be involved? Could she have gone home to stay with him and daddy took advantage of her? Or the other thing that people say is impossible, that she didn't know anything about what her parents had done that was bad, so she wouldn't have confronted them. Maybe she did confront them. Maybe she wanted to go to freaking California, so she said to them, I know stuff. I could go to the police. I think you need to give me a bunch of money, and here's what's going to happen. You give me, I don't know, $10,000, and we will go away to California and leave you alone, and then you will leave me alone. And they didn't like that. And they assaulted her, and they killed her. And after she was dead in their house, like the other 2 bodies were dead in the house, they had to make a decision. What do we do? And they decided, hey, what we could do is dump the body parts on his property. The torso, wherever, maybe that's proof of how she died. Maybe that she was pregnant. we'll take the torso elsewhere, but we'll dump everything else near his place of work because we want to get this son of a bitch anyway. We'll make him look guilty, and we'll get away with it. I think that's interesting. She ran away from home. But that's one of the things they questioned Tanya about. That they didn't get along perfectly with him, and Tanya ran away from home for quite a while, and so did she. So there were lots of running away from home for a reason, because these two are their parents. Now, why Tanya has now chummed up with mommy, I don't know. I think she's lost her damn mind, but no, the torso was never found. Nothing comes between our love. That may be true too. It's possible that she did confront her parents finally, said, I'm done with your garbage. And they're like, you're going to put daddy in jail and you're going to take away my husband. I don't trust her any more than I trust him. Somebody said, well, who could have killed her? Well, I think either one of them could have killed her in rage, because he's big with rage. And I think she's pretty rageful herself. And neither one of them looked for her. They were claiming he didn't look for her. They didn't look for her either. That was their daughter they thought was with a guy they hated and was evil. And they didn't bother to look for her. And they didn't give their DNA up so they can find that head belonged to her, next to her husband's workplace. Oh, Lord. Could have been she was shot in the heart. Good point, Caitlin. Maybe it was the same gun that they used to shoot everybody else. Pregnancy makes sense that the torso is most incriminating, or that she was raped. Hard to say. He could say that somebody was framing him. He could. He could. So this is the problem with the case. That, again, if I were on that jury, there was zero physical evidence linking him to the crime. Only circumstantial evidence was that he didn't report her missing and didn't look for her. That was it. And supposedly he might have stolen a saw. And the defense, great. What is his name again? Because, man, that guy was good. Joe McDermott. I have to give it to this guy. It was one of the best closing arguments I have ever heard from a defense attorney. And these two, horrible. It was all about imagination. Oh, as a matter of fact, one of the things that drove me crazy with Sheryl is that on her Zone 7, she talks to his medical examiner. She's talking about how she puts together the crime like a movie. Well, I've done that. I have that same viewpoint. I was up for a television show from Discovery Channel. It was called Crime Rewind with Pat Brown. And I did a sizzle reel for it, where I looked at a crime and then I backed it up, and it was rewinding through the evidence. So then once you rewind, then you could play the video and you could see the crime being acted. By the way, they were so sure it was going to go, and then it got to the top level of Discovery, and somebody at the top level, some executive said, no, probably because I'm not an FBI profiler. They love, that kind of person. So anyway, so it got axed, and it was really sad because I thought it was going to be a really good show. But I do believe in that, because you look at the evidence, and when you have a lot of evidence in a crime, you can then link the evidence together and you can see how things play out. You can develop what happened. Sheryl McCollum claims that's what she does. And then she said, she went back to the house. She went back to the house and said, I can see him. There's domestic violence over here. I can see him getting angry with her. I can see him strangling her. That is not evidence, Sheryl. I don't understand. You're an evidence person. You know that's not evidence. There's not one shred of evidence that she was murdered in that house, or that he murdered her, or how she was murdered. So you're just developing an imaginary scene because it suits you to have him kill her in a domestic violence. But there's no proof that happened. And if you're going to link together things in a video in your head, it has to be based on evidence, not your imagination. And she did that, and I was like stunned. I don't know. Maybe it's an aberration. I don't know a lot about Cheryl's involvement in other cases, but the fact that she thinks she solved this case based on no evidence, that she and whoever else helped her, these flying pathological people, developing a fake scenario, because it's a fake scenario because we don't know that it's true. Fake scenario that got the prosecutors to go and prosecute this case in such a dismal and horrifying bad way that it was embarrassing. And then he gets up there and does this, what's his name again? Because I'm going to give him credit. Joel McDermott. I have to look at other cases he's done. Excellent. He went through all the points and just nailed everything. And the jury's like, yep. And only thing that bothers me is it took them 3 hours instead of 30 minutes because a professional jury would have found it in 30 minutes and said, we're done. As a matter of fact, as I point out, if there were a professional jury system in place, I don't think these two would have dared take it to court because they would say, we can't pull this over on a professional jury. They're not going to fall for this nonsense because there's not even proof that it was a homicide. There's zero proof it links to this husband, even if he does have some squirrely behaviors. And there's, as he pointed out, there's too many other possibilities, including the parents. Which, they wouldn't kill their own kid. Well, hell yeah, they would if that kid was going to rat them out. Maybe they were sick to death of her. They wanted the two babies. They could get her two babies maybe. And they would be fresh meat to manipulate. But this girl, maybe she was just, they were fed up with her. And so, hey, she asked them for that money or I'm going to rat you out. They're like, she's like everybody else, like that. Like, what's the woman over here? Liddy. Supposedly she opened her mouth. They killed her and maybe raped her. Well, pretty much looked like it since I cut out her crotch and her clothes because she was talking. Maybe if their daughter talks, it's just as bad a deal. And so you're going to sit here and tell me that they couldn't have done it when they're psychopaths, in my opinion. I can't say she's a psychopath just because she's still around. And I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist and I cannot diagnose. But her behaviors, the fact that she would know murders are going down, not go to the police, stay with a man who's a murderer and help get rid of bodies and have the murder happen in her own living room while their kids are home, I'm going to say. And from everything I've seen, she can be very sweet and very manipulative. But when she was in court, they nailed her so many times where they caught her in lie after lie after lie after lie. So that's pathological lying. So I'm going to say she does exhibit behaviors of a psychopath. Be so careful with that. Anyway. Let's see. Tetra had a good statement. What does Tetra say? It's possible. I mean, again, the torso thing, yeah, it's possible. Maybe that cutout of the crotch of clothing was part of staging. I don't. Okay, let me look at that. Okay, could it have been? It could have been. It's a very rare version. Because generally speaking, they would just make her nude and just check her body nude, and that would look more like a serial killer. It almost seems to me like after that he hated her because she was supposedly ratting him out, but he also may have had a little hots for her because she's a pretty attractive woman, and I think it looked like it was cut out after she died, so maybe it was just convenient for him to be able to rape her that way, so he didn't bother to get all the clothes up. Maybe she wore tight pants. I don't know. So I tend to think that that's not staging, but it could have been. But I just don't think that would be. That's a weird staging methodology. I don't think it was necessary. I thought it would be easy just to rip her clothes off and leave her naked. Sounds sadistic. Yeah, that's a good point, Caitlin. Like he supposedly really hated her. Oh, think of this. This is just again boggles the mind. But this is a psychopathic's way of thinking. They grew up together. They dated in high school. And Carl and Norma dated in high school. They went out double dating all the time. And then he kills his best friend and his girlfriend that he's known all his life. A pretty nasty creature. There was a witness who testified he was having an affair with her. Maybe. There was a whole claim about the Waffle House. One of the other interesting things was that Norma said that Her daughter didn't have a phone, but she worked at the Waffle House. She could have called her mother. It was 35 minutes away. Again, we're not talking about another country here. So all of Norma's stuff is crap. But could she have been having an affair? Sure. Because I mean, the concept is that the concept is, and again, I just don't know how much is true and how much isn't, that their marriage was, according to these people and Tina, the sister, that he was abusive toward her. Although, again, there's no real proof that he was severely abusive toward her. I mean, they were young and stupid, and both of them had issues. Could he have slapped her? Could he have pushed her? Yeah, sure. But there's not like massive amounts of proof of anything here. So could she have been having an affair at the Waffle House? Sure. And that she could have gotten pregnant. It could have made him mad. But these are all conjecture. It's conjecture, and we don't have evidence of anything. Could she have had an affair and just want to get away from him and did think she just ran away? Because he said, I think she's having an affair. She wants to run away. That's fine. She can go away. My mom will take care of the kids, and I'm just going to go. Oh, by the way, he did lose his job. That's one of the reasons he moved after Christmas. He lost his job at Action. And the claim is because he supposedly stole a saw, but that was not truth. It was about an accident. And so he lost his job. And so he had one of the reasons he moved is because he didn't have an income. So he moved in with family. So was he kind of a messed up loser? Yeah. But so was she. So was the whole freaking family. So the problem is when you're going to analyze a crime and you're going to be a prosecution and take it to court, you cannot use imagination to build your case. And if you're a profiler, criminologist, you shouldn't be using imagination to build your case. You can point out different possibilities, but that's not the same thing as proof. I can't say that these two killed their daughter and cut her up and try to frame him. I can't say that they did because I don't know. I can give you the little visualization thing, just like Sheryl gave a visualization how he killed his wife. But it's just a visualization. The question would be, is there proof? If there's no proof, there's no proof. You can still believe it. You might think it's true, but there's no proof. There's no way, if I were prosecuting this case, I would have taken this case to court. No way. I wouldn't have even arrested him because there's no evidence. Would I arrest them for killing their daughter and doing all that? No, because I don't have any evidence on that either. So, no. But what really bothers me in this whole thing, which really gets me upset, is that when criminologists and the media get together to actually pursue and pressure the police into and whatever agency they're pushing to go forward with a case without evidence. I was just like, what the heck? That's not your place to do that. You can present. I present profiles. I presented profiles to the police department. This is my profile of the case. This is my equivocal death analysis. This is whatever my analysis is. And then I leave it with them to take it forward. Now, I may think I solved the case, but unless there's proof and they can take it forward, the case is not solved. This case is still not solved, in spite of the fact what Sheryl McCollum says. It was never solved. And there is not one shred of proof that he did it. And I'm just floored that this whole thing even made it to court. Wow. Just crazy. That's an interesting point, Chris. Maybe she knew of other crimes in the 80s and 90s, unlikely the parents to stop. Not necessarily murder, but other stuff. That is a great point. It's like, what, did he kill 5 people? And then he just like, I'm a good guy now. Because he's not. He's a psychopath. He's a murderous psychopath. And again, she's questionable. And just because they're raising a couple kids doesn't mean that the rest of their life is suddenly clean and perfect because, oh, we've got children. Because those 2 children were already born when he murdered for the first time. Well, no, take that back. Second time. First time before the first time, maybe the first kid was already born. By the time Melissa was born, that was when 3 murders were committed prior to Melissa's birth. And after Melissa was born, then his best friend and supposed co-conspirator, according to him, because best friend can't deny anything because he's dead, and the girlfriend were killed. So he appears to be that he killed while his first child was growing up, and he killed while his second child was growing up. So, of course, he would then stop. He did kill for money as well. He killed for a whole bunch of reasons. He was just a murderous little machine here. Enough to be a risk to the parents. Again, yes, that's possible. Could have been very, very much a risk. And what happens, what people don't understand with psychopathy is that, which is what happens with serial killers as well, or family annihilators. They'll say, "Oh my God, the dad was such a good dad. He used to coach Little League, and he was always so proud with the two kids. And then one morning, the wife and the two kids are dead, and he's like, oh, somebody came in and killed my wife and two kids." But clearly he's the one that killed them. And you say, well, how could that be when he was such a good daddy? Because he's a psychopath, and the children were never. He didn't care about the children. He might have loved the children like you would love a possession, like you like a car, but when your car's not working well, you just smash it up, Get rid of things that are no longer useful to you. You're either useful or you're in the way. That's my statement on psychopaths. You're either useful or you're in the way. So when kids are useful and wives are useful, oh, she's giving you sex and she's taking care of you and she's feeding you, and the kids are, oh, daddy, you're so wonderful. And you can use them as props to look like you're not a psychopath and you're not committing crimes. And then one day you kill them all. It's because they never did mean anything to you. So that these two truly cared about their children, get out of here. If they cared about their children, they wouldn't have done all the horrible things they did. Now, they might have liked their children and wanted to manipulate their children and whatever, because even mafia people do that. Cartel people do that. They'll like take care of their children, and somebody kills their child, they will cry. Like, oh my God, you killed my. Are they sad they lost the child? Yes, because that possession is lost. They're not concerned about the way the child felt when they got killed by their competitors. They're only upset that they lost what their possession was, and they like their possession, so they get angry about that. But they don't care that the possession really has any feelings. So I don't believe they cared what their daughters felt, because otherwise the daughters wouldn't be suffering through what all the daughters have suffered through. Tina, I don't know, maybe Tina has unfortunately gone over the edge too with personality disorder. But if you're hanging around your mommy and think she's a decent person, you are either highly manipulated or ignorant or whatever, because your mom is a terrible human being. Your dad is a terrible human being, and that either one of them could have killed your sister. That could be. Chris says, probably ask himself, is Melissa still useful or in the way? And she might have been useful for those bunch of, years growing up. She might have been fun and all that kind of stuff. And then she became just a pain in the ass. And you're done with it. I mean, people who aren't psychopaths will separate themselves from their kids. They'll disown them because their kids are horrible. So, why would a psychopath not do that? Why would a psychopath not maybe take even more extreme measures if that child has become a problem? Especially if they're going to rat you out to the police. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. Those poor kids. I mean, this is like generational nightmare. Liz says, much I do not like Mama. Is it possible she was afraid of her husband? Hell no. No. I mean, she brags and is delighting in what her husband did. She wants him to come out. Hey, he's in prison. She could dump him right. She could really do him in right there. But no, she's still like, oh, I love him. No, sorry. No. I think she is what she is, because she's caught in so many lies that I don't think it's fear. And she's got that attitude. When you see her in court, no, I don't buy it. I think she's, look, Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. There's a great example. So Paul Bernardo's raping and killing girls, and Carla Homolka is his wife, and she first gives her sister over to him to rape and kill. And then She helps him abduct women and teenagers, abduct teenage girls, and helps him rape and kill them. She turned evidence just like she did against hubby, and Paul Bernardo goes to prison for life. She gets off completely. She gets to have her identity changed. She gets married and has kids. Do you think she just did that? Did you think she just helped Paul because she couldn't help? She was scared of him? No, it's because she was getting off on it, and there's proof she was enjoying it. And if one of Carla Homolka's kids gets raped and murdered, I will feel terrible for that child, and I will say, "Ha ha, Carla Homolka, you deserve every bit of that." I've got zero sympathy for you, and I'm sick of hearing people say they have sympathy for people like that. It just revolts me. It absolutely revolts me. And you know, I try not to be overly emotional on these things because I'm talking about cases. But when I see people coddle killers and feel sorry for them, I want to throw up. That's one thing I just have a real issue with. That's no. I think Sheryl could have fought for finding out what happened to Melissa without becoming buddies with these two. I think that was disgusting. And she should have considered them suspects. And the fact that Sheryl didn't even consider them suspects bothers the hell out of me because she wasn't looking at evidence. And I don't understand that. I'm stunned by it. I really am. I'm stunned. So, and she did, and she didn't divorce him either. Finally died on her. Thank God. But yeah. So I think I'll end this here. But I guess I've shocked some of you by actually siding with the defense on this case because it is pretty rare for me. But the reason it's rare is because usually the prosecution prosecutes somebody because they have the evidence. Most of the time, the prosecution is on the right side because otherwise they wouldn't go to court with it. I have seen cases where they have, and I've spoken up on those cases. There are a few of them out there. I'm like, what the heck? For the most part, I find that generally speaking, I find that the evidence is sufficient for them to have taken it to court. And I find the defense often will pretty much do anything to throw crap at the lay jury that they'll emotionally, meld with, and then they let the person off because they only need one person, right? But in this case, that was a pitiful case. They should be ashamed of themselves. The prosecution and everybody who cooperated with them should be ashamed of themselves. Fascinating, just unbelievable. I hope this isn't to get a network show or a book. A lot of times what you see is, here's the thing. Everybody has a right to write a book. Especially if they're professional in the field and they want to write a book about something, it's okay. You want to have a national television show of your own? I get it. When people look at motives for why people do things, they can have multiple motives, and it isn't necessarily that it's bad. Did I want to have a national show at one time when I had this opportunity, say with Discovery, to do Crime Rewind with Pat Brown? Oh my God, I thought maybe a ship was coming in, my ship was coming in, and then it sunk in the harbor. But, did I want that? Of course I did. That's an exciting thing in life. Would I have done it? Would I be willing to do something I think was unethical to get that show? That's the real question. And my answer to that is no. Would I write a book just because I want to get my name out there and be famous for some book and make $1 million? No. I would have to believe in the book, and I'd have to believe in the show. And I've turned a lot of stuff down in my history. I have turned a lot of stuff down. And I've spoken up in ways that probably did not help my career at all. And, that's just me. That's the way I've always been. But I do understand that people, it's a little grayer area in some places where, people, they want to be successful and they want to earn a living, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with any of that. So I don't begrudge people who are more successful than myself because they have some way to get an opportunity that I didn't get, or I failed, we both were up for something and I lost and they won. I don't have an issue with that, but I am shocked about this case because I don't get it. And in court, she said that Sheryl was after that all those letters she was writing back and forth to hubby here, this guy, was so that she could have a book. Well, I just have to say, I don't understand. The reason I don't understand is because she has every right to write a book on the case. But the fact that she's not paying attention to the evidence and that they were never suspects bothers the hell out of me. And that she's like, oh, mama this and mama that, to make me want to throw up, because I'm like, this woman is a horrible human being. And even if you want to find out who killed her, she's still a horrible human being, and you don't have to pretend that she isn't. So I'm blown away by the whole thing. But yeah, everybody has a right to have a book or a television show. But just that. Well, have some sense of decency about it. No, thank you, Liz. I mean, this one really shocked me because I talked about this at the Hangout on Thursday, because I just heard that he got not found guilty, and I knew Sheryl had done this thing on Zone 7, and I didn't know anything about the case. So I said, I don't know, and I said I have to look into it more, and I decided to look into it more, and then I was like blown away because I did not see this coming. I did not. I mean, I was like, this is a whole different can of worms than I had any clue about. So then I just was fascinated by it. So anyway, so that's very nice of you, Lisa. I appreciate that, and thank you, Clarissa. I'm still just shaking my head. I just can't wrap my head around it. I mean, it's just so weird. So weird. Anyway, okay, I'm going to stop right now. I'll see some of you back on Wednesday or Thursday for the Hangout. And again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe and check my playlist. And if you have a particular case you're interested in, go to the search engine at YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown in the case you're interested in. And join Patreon below if you'd like to be in the chat room. It's $5 a month. It's 2 shows a week. And all my shows are patron only. For the most part. I have a few I do public, but all of my shows become public after I do them. So if you don't want to join Patreon, please just subscribe to the channel. You can see everything. Because I want people to learn things. This is an educational channel. And yeah, all righty then. I will go away now. Gute Nacht. I can't even say it. I can say Gute Nacht, but I don't think I can say that one. Bye, Harpa. Bye, Chris. Bye, everybody. Bye, Lane. Yeah, that was a roller coaster, wasn't it, Allison? The whole thing was just, I didn't even know how to present it in a two-hour frame. It's like, yeah. Thank you, DL. Liz, I made you sick to your stomach. Sorry about that. I apologize for that. Anyway, that's very nice of you, Christoph. There are very few people I believe that ethical principles about money. I believe you. It's, we could use a few more people that were very, very focused on ethics, but ethics sometimes go against success in life, so there is a problem there. Oh my God. Anyway, yes, I'm going to go away now. I really am this time. Bye, everybody.